I have my own perspective, and it's fashioned based on what it is I allow to come in to my eyes, ears, and senses.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks. Our guest today's name is Michael Reed. We're going to have a discussion about networking and work-life balance. Welcome to the show, Michael. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to be here again.
How important is networking to you?
Well, networking, to be honest with you, is, if there were a middle name, it would be me. My name is Michael Networking Reed. I've been a networker since I don't know how long. Didn't know that's what it was. I just knew that when I was given the test to go to the military, which I did not go to, that's a whole nother story. But when I did the test, what was told to me is I have an ability to take abstract things and bring them all together and make sense, which in hindsight now is a real accurate picture of networking. So that's what my aptitude is for. Again, I didn't realize that in that sense until recently, to be honest with you, that those things connected. And that was indicated about me years ago, and how that would play out in my professional life in general. I'm the guy with a Rolodex of 6,000 people in my phone, of which I've got pretty much good personal relationships with probably 2,500 of them at least. And I've kept those contacts for 15 years.
Rolodex. I know the term.
Right.
Database now.
Yeah. So contacts. I got a list of contacts. My contacts list is large and long. It's no longer on a rolling card decks, which is a Rolodex, right?
That's almost like saying I'm going to go use my rotary phone.
Right. I did that too. So I can tell you that.
Why is that important to you?
Well, it allows me to connect people with people, and I take great pleasure from doing that. That's my feel good. That's what I love to do, and that is being able to say, here, this is the person you need to talk to get what it is you told me you're looking for, and then I introduce them, and then they do what they need to do, and they're able to get what they need, right? And that is what really motivates me personally and professionally to do what I do, whatever the case may be. So that being said, of course, we're talking about work-life balance in the context of networking. Sometimes it's important for me to take some downtime.
What is downtime? For a person that has a purpose of networking and loves interacting with people, how do you turn that off?
Funny you should ask. So until recently, I haven't made any hard, fast attempt to do that. Until actually yesterday, to be honest with you. I literally took my phone and turned it off. I took my smartwatch off my wrist. I turned it off. Not just on silent, not just do not disturb, but off. And I will tell you, an hour and a half after I was awake, I was already getting anxious. I'm like, what? And by the way, the TV off. So
what did you do? No TV, no social media, no connecting. What did you do?
I contemplated the situation. I picked up my new remarkable tablet, which doesn't have any internet connection, and I started to write, which, by the way, I've been doing that for about 2.5 weeks now, but not in conjunction with being disconnected from everything either. So that was the first time I did that, was yesterday. And I wrote several pages of entries into that. And
what kind of writing?
So basically just journaling my thoughts for the most part, right? And what occurred to me in the very early minutes of the writing was that I used to watch a movie. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't used to. I watched a movie that I liked a lot, which I'm going to say, and I'm sure you're familiar with, and you probably liked it too, called The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
And I hear people joke about it in passing. I'm so busy, I'm not really giving deep thought to what they're saying. I've heard it talked about on podcasts, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are weirdos. Sci-fi enthusiast, and that's just a little bit far-fetched for me. But then I unplugged, and I'm like, that's exactly what we do. So the reality of that the premise of that movie sunk into me in a way that I probably have never experienced before. I really applaud the people who wrote that movie because it was way ahead of its time. And
so we're around 95 or something like that.
Right about the start of the internet.
30 years ago.
Yeah. So now, fast forward, what I realized in unplugging was that I was literally just going through the motions, even though I was networking, even though I do all of those things and I do have a great joy in it. I don't have any time to savor that because I'm just completely plugged in all the time. 100%. There is no disconnecting in my world completely until yesterday. And I went on a walk, and I took about 2.5 hours to walk, 6 miles uphill, from where I live all the way up to Beeline Furniture, which is a decent walk, and then back. And when I returned, everybody's like, "Where were you?" I'm like, "I was walking." "Why didn't you take a phone?" "Because I didn't want to." And, my own father refuses to carry a cell phone except for the one he puts in his glove box that doesn't have any real service, because he knows that if he has an emergency, you can dial 911 as long as it's got a battery charge. It'll allow you to do that. And I always gave him a hard time about that, to be honest with you. But yesterday I understood for the first time why it's so valuable. Staying away from the television too. I generally stay away from television, but what I had gotten in the habit of doing because of my networking is trying to keep up with current affairs. Telling myself it's not that big a deal, 10 to 15 minutes into it in the morning. And yes, it does give me the opportunity to speak intelligently on certain things and be informed. I have conversation pieces to have. But what I realized is those conversation pieces aren't necessarily that important to me. As much as they might be important to you or somebody else, they're not really that important to me. And
what is important then?
Relationships. And relationships aren't built upon what's the latest economic trends or the latest, which shouldn't be predicated on political affiliations, but oftentimes I see that there's a lot of division, obviously, and of course, people breaking off into into not sects, but into tribes or the groups, camps, whatever, to find their identity in these groups instead of really trying to understand individuality. They just come together in a clump of, I'm this, you're that, I'm good, you're bad, I'm right, you're wrong. There's no real relationship there. It's just what the status quo is, like voting party lines. Mm-hmm. I don't do that either. So it's like going to the one denomination or another. I don't do that either.
How do you avoid it?
How do I avoid it? I just do not participate in what I used to participate in, because I don't believe that I have the answers that are wholesale right or wrong for that fact. I just know that I have my own perspective, and it's fashioned based on what it is I allow to come in to my eyes, ears, and senses, period. So I learned that just like the food part, what my health is predicated on what I put into my body. Same with my spiritual health, emotional health. It's predicated upon what I allow into my ears and my eyes. So the balance that I'm seeking currently, and I have been seeking that, has been a process, and it started and culminated, rather, I should say, in my unplugging from everybody yesterday.
How often do you think you should do that, Michael?
I think I should do it every day. I think there should be a cutoff time where I'm not picking that device up and I'm looking at me. Don't get me wrong, it was kind of uncomfortable to figure out what to do for a minute. But the reality is you're not going to figure out what to do if you stay plugged in. So to try to find those things that might be appealing to me that are outside of the synthesized world of digital, I have to be outside of that world. And so journaling is one of my things. I enjoy writing thoroughly. Whether or not it takes form of something else later, I don't know.
What is your position at the company you work with?
Currently, I'm the Senior Business Development Liaison at the company I work for.
And what does that mean?
So I liaise people. So basically, I am the guy who connects person A with person B, or company A with company B. That is actually my job.
So you are a connector for business-to-business relationships?
And client-to-business relationships as well.
Okay. So you could potentially have somebody that needed the services that you guys render, and they would potentially call you
100%.
and then you would introduce them to the services.
I would obtain the information that I need to go ahead and allow them. I would get that information put into, hand it over to my missions team, and my missions team at that point in time would run those information pieces to determine whether or not they were going to be able to come to our facility because of insurance or whatever the payer source may be, to make sure the payer source is adequate, and also they have to do a pre-screen assessment with them to determine if they're a good fit for us as far as what their need is. For example, they can't be too high of an acuity when it comes to mental health. We are primary substance abuse and secondary mental health, but there is a certain acuity that is too high for us to take on the mental health side, which in Oklahoma is interesting because if you've got private and commercial insurance, there is absolutely no licensure, at least. Don't quote me for sure, but I'm pretty sure my understanding is today that there is no licensure available for a primary mental health facility in Oklahoma, save a CCBH, which is the state-funded facilities, such as Grand or maybe Family and Children's Services, but that's just one organization amongst. So there's a lot of mental health need here in the state, but currently speaking, we're not the mental health provider primarily. We just deal with substance abuse, primary, and mental health, secondary.
So these people could potentially be hurting tremendously that need your services.
100%. And, I don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but at some point we're going to have to address the fact, in my opinion, it's not necessary, but it's not something, my opinion is not something that's necessarily held by everybody. It is mine. And in my opinion, in my experience, mental health is the driving factor and force for addictive behavior when it comes to substance abuse, period. I mean, you probably
trying to cover something up.
Yeah, you probably have a mental health issue if you're sticking needles in your arm or if you're drinking way too much alcohol and you're blacking out. Whatever the case may be, there's something you're trying to get away from, and it's a mental and emotional trauma or difficulty that you have with whatever the situation is. You're not really comfortable dealing with life on life's terms. And to wrap it back to what I was talking about a minute ago, that is exactly what I'm dealing with a little bit, right? So currently my work is necessarily my solution for not having to sit with myself. Why is it so uncomfortable to sit with myself? Probably because I've never gained any skills to show me what it is to do to deal with me as far as occupy my time on earth for when I'm not doing a substance, when I'm not working, because workaholics are a real thing, and it provides the same payoff that a substance does. Dopamine hit, whatever the case may be, when you've been able to get the promotion or whatever the case may be.
So with you having addictive behaviors and also having some pressure, I would think I might take that pressure of knowing that they're hurting people that are relying on me to answer a phone.
Sure. And
then you need to step back for yourself to have that work-life balance.
It can be difficult. I mean, my coworker just the other day, who does what I do out in the Oklahoma City area, his biggest gratitude for the day was that he answered his phone regularly. And that was because he had a gentleman in his house, which he has sober living houses as well. He does. And that person had OD'd in the bathroom. But if he hadn't answered his phone in this particular instance, I forget the circumstances, but if he hadn't answered his phone, that man may not have got what he needed and may have died. So that is the balance problem, right? So when I take a moment out, obviously there's an anxiety associated with that too.
Do you have a place that you can forward your phone to? The other people would answer?
I have thought about that, actually. It's funny you should say. In fact, some people in my industry do that. It's just, a matter of fact, until you said it, I didn't think about it again. I have encountered other individuals in this space that do exactly that.
You need that, man. And people need that. People need to be able to reach out to Michael Reed because I'm sure he's somewhat well known. You are somewhat well known in the recovery area.
Sure.
Community.
Yeah. And so that's a good point. So matter of fact, I think I'm going to bring that to the attention of
your team needs to
partner.
support you with that.
Yeah, my partner would be more than happy to do that, I think. And I would be the same, happy to do that with him as well. I didn't have a partner necessarily until recently. So
perfect timing.
Perfect timing, 100%.
Michael Reed's ready to sit back just a little bit and self-reflect and learn who he is and do some journaling. And then
I realized
you have this partner
come
on not too long ago.
Not too long ago. I've known him for years, though. So he's worked doing the same thing I've done, which honestly for both of us has been just answer our phone. We're just now recently, both of us about the same age, are having to check some boxes. It's not only are we required to put people into our care, but we're also required to prosper in the way of developing new relationships, because that's what business development is. Which simply means I have to make a certain amount of stops in a day to various organizations that might be able to reciprocate or may need our assistance without reciprocation even. For example, an emergency room at a hospital, for example. They may come across people that meet the criteria as far as payer source or insurances that would be a good fit for us, and they need them to move on to that next step so they can call us. So those are the things that we are required to do. We haven't been required to do previously. So it's new for us in that respect.
Which is a good idea, to build long-term, ongoing relationships, it would seem.
Sure, 100%. So it expands the reach of the company, right?
Yep.
But it's hilarious. He and I both have never ever had to have anybody telling us what to do. So it was kind of weird but
it's a good idea though.
It's a great,
right?
It's not even a new idea, but yeah, it's a great thing to do. It's just not something that we've been needed to do. As far as all we were asked to do is provide people for the treatment center to care for, right? And that's been easy for both of us. That is the easiest thing in the book. But being able to take some personal time out, I would trust him actually to do that.
Is he in Tulsa?
No, he's in Oklahoma City.
Oh, he's that guy you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, he would. I was on the phone with him before I walked in the door, but in fact, I may invite him to come speak with you. That's probably my next thought. But, so that's something that's definitely a good thought in this conversation, which I will pursue. While doing the journaling, not only did I find that journaling to be therapeutic in the way of putting thoughts down on paper, but, as a kid, we don't teach people to write in cursive as a whole anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I started out the process with block letters. This is not good. This is not doing it. First of all, it looks like crap because nothing's consistent. For me anyway. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and try to write in cursive. Well, I haven't done it in years. But it progressed. And I'm using a calligraphy type point, which is not a real pen, but it's digital, right? But it looks amazing. I'm surprised. But that's not the biggest part of it. It is an artwork, is what I'm trying to say. So there's an artistic
outlet as well
portion to that, and also there's a focus that comes from writing in cursive that does not exist with block lettering. You must continually focus on what you're writing and what you're thinking to write, because as you're scrolling through that long word that's all connected, you don't really want to stop and erase. And if you're using an actual ink pen, you can't, unless you got one of those erasable inks, or what I'm using, I can erase. But I'm kind of I don't say perfectionist. I'm kind of, because perfection.
You want things orderly, neat and orderly?
Yeah, I don't want to have to go back and erase, even if I can. I want it to flow. So the flow that comes with actually writing cursive, in my opinion, may be somewhat linked to, in some way, inattention problems. Like if I was learning how to write like that in school, I would have learned how to focus, which I did, which most kids aren't being taught to do anymore. And I'm wondering, well, are we losing some of the focus training that we could give to our children inadvertently through writing in cursive? I would have to say maybe. But I'm not sure how that all ties to everything, but trying to find some center in myself. These are the things I'm realizing. Why is it I'm attracted to writing so much? It gets my thoughts down on paper, and it never stops listening. So that is a peril of us that like to engage in conversation. Sometimes people don't want to engage two ways in conversation. They want to check out, but the paper never checks out. So all those kids that are being told to shut up in class, why don't we tell them, let's journal? I mean, that was just a realization recently. And it's like, why would we just, if they'd have told me to journal and encouraged me to do creative writing back then, it might have helped me a little bit. Because right now, I don't find myself having an oversharing situation with people, because I've done that before too, because my thoughts are not ordered. And if I don't journal before I go to sleep, I don't get as good a sleep. Probably because I take that stuff in the front part of my brain to bed with me. So I'm not dreaming. So over this course of this process, the first thing I noticed was I started dreaming well, before I could remember it even.
Do you wake up and write those?
No, I haven't yet, but I know if it moves me to do so, I probably would. Depends on what I'm dreaming, right? Most of it's not bizarre so far, so that's good. But the keynote, the thing to mention here is, though, I really haven't dreamed or hadn't had any dreams going on in years. And it wasn't until I started this process that I started dreaming again, which means my brain is able to clear out all the old junk and start saving that stuff that I've been writing down probably. But the way I understand the process, but more specifically, it's allowing me to have some deep, meaningful rest.
Right. Yes.
I mean, I can see where this thing tells me I'm in REM sleep, but that doesn't tell me the quality of the REM sleep. That just goes on heart rate and all that good stuff, right? So for me, it has enriched my sleep already. So I feel more rested when I wake up. Even the watch says I'm more rested, because it might tell me, X, Y, Z, but I don't know. Long and the short of it, it seems like it's going to help a lot in ways I never really imagined. And so this work-life balance in the context of networking is something that I'm trying to navigate currently.
Yeah. You might be able to do your job better by taking some time. Your effectiveness might increase. Your numbers might increase because you're sleeping better, because you're doing some self-care. And the amazing thing is, the industry that you're in, the recovery industry, why would you not already be doing this?
Well, that's funny you should ask. And by the way, I've written down in journal entries in the last day exactly what you just said. That I suspicion that if I do this regularly, my productivity will go up because my efficiency will go up. I won't have to work as hard. I'll be working smarter. And that is what I believe 100%. Why would I drive myself like that?
Why would you not do self-care?
Well, because I needed to drive myself so hard that I was getting affirmation from you. So that's the deal. So now that I'm getting a little more comfortable in what I'm doing, I'm realizing that I don't have anything to prove to you or anybody else, by my overworking. I just don't. And not only that, I'm better served. The clients I help are better served by my resting, probably, because I'm not getting confused about anything, and I'm remembering to follow up with everybody, because I don't make a bunch of reminders, but I have a loose list of people I work with and every month. But typically, if my mind's clear, I remember I need to go back and call Albert today.
Another thing with journaling could be applied to what you just said, right? You wouldn't have to remember. You could release that from your brain.
Right.
You could note it. You could schedule it.
Sure. And I do, like I said, I do have a loose, like on my phone, I do have a loose list of anybody that I'm working with currently actively.
Things to do with them.
Yeah. And I only have to write a list of things I just know. And if I look at it regularly, I remember to go back. And I like to start a text thread with them usually. That way I can go back for real, because texts, I don't have to go back to a voicemail or a note. I just look through my text messages. Okay, that's where we're at. And my phone will allow me to search that stuff. But it's twofold. So that's great for that. But when it comes to sanity, I believe actual writing is more therapeutic for me than I could have ever imagined.
So you are writing anyway with text messages. You are writing, and you are somewhat releasing it. You could maybe use a CRM to be able to get...
I am using a CRM.
Okay.
And that's for the work side. But for the personal side, I have used, that was the reason I bought the Remarkable Notebook is what it's called. I bought that because I was going to use it to jot down notes as I'm doing my stops during the day, so that I make sure it gets into the CRM if I forgot to put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I believe that you write it, you're going to remember it further too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because
it engages your brain in a different aspect.
Sure. So I haven't used it. It's funny. So I was using it for that only. Now I don't use that for that primarily anymore. It's primarily for me to stop and write whenever I think to do. If I start finding myself a little bit confused on which direction to go with something, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I must have some crap to get rid of. So I pull out my notepad and I start writing. And it's really weird. This particular notepad actually has, and I didn't know when I bought it, it has, they call it tips that actually need to be replaced, even though it's not lead. They wear down over time, which is really bizarre to me. But it wears down because the surface of the tablet is not smooth. It's got a texture to it, and it sounds like paper. When you're using it, it sounds like and feels like paper, actually.
So you're using it like a pen on sandpaper almost?
Almost. It does feel incredibly like using a pencil or a pen. And like I said, I just graduated to the calligraphy point, which made my writing look really good. I'm not going to lie. I don't have a clue how, but somebody accused me of using AI. I'm like, no, that's just my writing. Heck, who knows? Maybe AI helps brush it up while I'm writing. I don't know. And that predicated another thought, by the way, because I did disconnect, and I am using a tablet that doesn't have any internet access, but it does have Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is so that I can look at it on my phone. It can sync up to my phone, the app on my phone, right? So I can always have it available if I need it. Well, the other thought was, maybe I shouldn't even hook up to that. It's now, Big Brother, I don't mean to be like, no conspiracy at all. It's real. I mean, so if I truly want to be off the grid, I can't even have that on because it's locating me regardless of whether or not I'm sharing my location. If I'm pinged on a Wi-Fi, on a router, on a tower, my location is, I'm still not off of the grid.
Some people say that we're all just a simulation anyway.
Well, we all are our perspective. So my perspective is what my reality is. That's where all those word of faith movements come from. And, you can name it, you can claim it, you can grab it, you can blab it. There's some truth to being able to speak life into your own life. What you repeat and hear is some of the things you're going to follow. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
What you say about yourself and what you hear about yourself that you say is going to be definitely, but
influential at least. Yeah,
but it's not magic. It's just what it is. But yeah, I would have to agree that we probably are just some type of simulation. I don't know.
Yeah. Elon Musk said that, actually. He said the odds of us not being a simulation, like that, what was the movie you said a little while ago?
The Matrix.
The Matrix. Elon Musk said that if we're not in the Matrix, the opportunity or the percentages are slim to none that this is not something like that.
Yeah. Well,
but Elon Musk.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I mean, I heard it, and it didn't really make sense practically speaking until I actually walked away from devices for a day, and I'm like, wow, there's something to this for real.
Yeah. Wait another 300-400 years from now.
Yeah,
and
maybe not quite that long, even, but.
Yeah, imagine that long from what we were 300 years ago to what we are now. Right. How do we unplug is my question, and how do we really live a life of abundance, whatever that looks like to us, in that peaceful state of having that work-life balance of networking and having that responsibility and yet being able to pull back?
I think for me anyway, the focus has to be I have to remind myself that my goal is not dollars and cents.
Dollars don't make sense if that's what you're following?
Something like that, yeah. So, and I like that actually. But as we're speaking, my phone, not my phone, but my watch is vibrating my wrist every 2 seconds. And because the emissions thread is notifying my watch via my phone that there's something going on. So again, it's that's the biggest thing for me. If I remember that, then kind of quells the anxiety, but I'm also competitive, right, with myself. Well, I can do better than this, and of course people bank on that,
But the realization that we just plugged into is that Michael Reed would function better, and Craig Lightfoot would function better if we actually practiced some more self-care. Didn't get stuck over in a ball in a closet or a corner somewhere where we were immovable, but maybe just a little bit of time away from that focus, a little bit of time of letting somebody else support where we need to have support.
Yeah, like the 3-day work week. I've read that book before, the 3-day work week, and it's funny. I had, before I got into this field, when I was working originally in roofing, I worked 3 days a week. Because I could, and because I was able to knock down more than most people that are working 6 or 7 days a week. I was knocking down more than them in a Mini Cooper without the big truck and the big wheels, to their chagrin, because they want to make fun of me in a Mini Cooper with my extending ladder, but I'm making more sales than you by a long shot. And probably some of that has to do with the fact that I wasn't on every day, all day. But that wasn't all. It took me a little bit of time to get to that. And I think that's where we're going with this current trajectory when it comes to my most recent dive into this industry.
How healthy was that for you to work a 3-day work week?
Not that healthy, because I was finding myself at the casino spending all that money. So I had to have some type of
people like you and I need something to do with our minds and our hands.
100%. So that's the difference today. I'm trying to warm into that versus, if I go to a casino today, it's with $40 no more.
Yeah.
And then if I lose that 40, bye, I'm out.
But extremisms is what we're talking about.
Sure.
And finding a balance and knowing our lane.
Yeah,
and 3-day weeks would not be good for me.
No, me neither.
Just in general.
Me either.
I'd find something to do.
Yeah, I'm all gas, no brakes is what I like to say sometimes, right? At least I have been over the course of my life. But I do know that I'm at the age right now, I'm like, what do I value? Again, dollars don't make sense. Like, they just don't. Yes, I need to have some money in the bank for retirement. Yes, I didn't have that before I got here and because of my choices, but that shouldn't be the driver, because if I let that drive me, then I lose focus of what the real purpose is, and I'm not even gaining happiness out of what I'm doing.
Spend your life for money?
Yeah, it's not my thing.
Not beneficial
no,
for you or anybody else around you?
No. And, I have an amazing life. I mean, and for whatever reason, people always let me do what I want to do. I don't know why. They just do. I mean, I've had my own businesses earlier than I probably needed to, but I learned a lot of things out of those things too. And this is the first time I can ever remember since I was 19 working in Oklahoma on a W-2 job. Why is that important? Because I was paying taxes, but I was also writing off everything so I didn't have to pay many taxes because I was self-employed. What does that mean for me now? Well, I'm getting older. I probably need to have some type of retirement potential there. And if I haven't been paying into Social Security, it's not going to pay me. Not that I'm depending on all that anyway, but I can't hedge anything at all if I'm not putting anything in. I can't expect anything either. So I'm doing that now. I don't think you have to do much more than 3 or 4 years, and you can cement yourself into whatever your retirement would look like if you're getting paid Social Security. And of course,
yeah, I think it's the top 5 years of your last 10 years of employment,
which is hilarious. I thought you had to work for 65 years to get any,
It's average of the last top 5,
yeah,
what I've heard.
I just found that out recently. I'm like, really? Why didn't somebody tell me this? My anxiety would have been a lot better. But yeah, the things that we learn later in life, that things like this podcast allow for general conversation and education through the general conversation, not something that's steered or canned.
Yeah.
That's where I found a lot of podcasts have been very beneficial to me in this area. Period. It's just eye-opening. That whole matrix thing, that whole, what do you call it? That whole, what do we call it? Propaganda machine. My great uncle, when I was a kid, used to say he swore that the moon landing was a farce, that it was all.
A lot of people say it today.
Yeah, and
a lot of people say it today.
And I've heard that, and I laughed at that guy. I thought he was a kook. And it's funny because the political leanings of my father, and we won't go into what those are, but lended to him thinking he's a kook because he should accept what the status quo was.
We haven't gotten there in 56 years. Since then. That's what
we have heard all that, right? It's all been wag the dog, it's all been cinematic.
Boeing can't even get people back from the space station effectively.
Yeah. So, yeah, but is it really a space station? I don't know. What I do know is we're spending a whole lot of money, supposedly, on things that are supposedly happening, and then whether or not they're happening. This is why
we'll see.
I particularly don't entertain any of it. I mean, it's like, okay, unless I'm going up in a capsule, I don't know that I believe any of it's really going on. Could be a really good diversionary tactic for a lot of money for a lot of people.
Next time you come on, we'll talk conspiracy theories.
Right
We're going to wrap it up and say we really appreciate you coming in and having this dynamic conversation. Hopefully the viewers learned something. I know I have.
Sure.
I think you've doubled down on what you're doing here, as well as had spawned thoughts of how you could incorporate your team player to be more of a team player, so you guys, both of you, can have some time off.
Absolutely.
Without having to have the phone on all the time and still be able to respond to people properly.
Sure.
So we have 2 slogans here. Your voice matters, and you're a piece of the complete piece.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?